The U.S. opposition to this resolution should come as no surprise. It is unacceptable for what it does say. It is unacceptable for what it does not say. And it is unacceptable for the manner in which it has been advanced. The United States has been clear. We would not support any measure that fails to condemn Hamas and does not call for Hamas to disarm and leave Gaza. In recent months, Hamas has rejected numerous ceasefire proposals, including one over the weekend, that would provide a pathway to end this conflict and release the remaining 58 hostages. We cannot allow the Security Council to reward Hamas's intransigence.
And I give the floor now to the representative of China.
China is deeply disappointed by the result of today's vote. The draft resolution on the humanitarian situation in Gaza tabled by the E10 of the Security Council clearly calls for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza and lifting of the blockade on humanitarian supplies therein. These are the most pressing demands of the people in Gaza who are struggling amidst death and despair, and they reflect the overwhelming voice of the international community. The United States has once again abused its veto power, extinguishing the glimmer of hope for the people of Gaza and ruthlessly continuing to leave over 2 million people in darkness. It must face questioning from the international community. People cannot help but ask, where is fairness and justice? For more than 600 days, over 54,000 people in Gaza have lost their lives. Israel continues to escalate its offensive and blockade, turning Gaza into a living hell. Innocent civilians are killed in the conflict every day, while a large portion of the population is on the brink of famine. The United Nations has clearly pointed out that the aid delivery mechanism promoted by the U.S. and Israel violates the principles of impartiality, independence, and neutrality. Recently, there have been repeated incidents of civilian casualties near distribution sites, and this mechanism has even become a death trap. The brutal facts have clearly shown that military means are not the solution. This conflict has long exceeded the limits of a hostage rescue operation. Israel must immediately cease military operations and fully restore access for humanitarian supplies. People cannot help but ask, where is the international rule of law? Since the outbreak of the conflict, we have witnessed the weaponization of humanitarian aid, the targeting of civilian infrastructure such as schools and hospitals, and the ruthless killing of journalists and humanitarian workers. Israel's actions have crossed every red line of the international humanitarian law and seriously violated Security Council and General Assembly resolutions, as well as the provisional measures ordered by the ICJ. Yet, due to the shielding by one country, these violations have not been stopped or held accountable. Observing international humanitarian law is an obligation all parties must fulfill. It is not optional. Any double standards or selective application will only erode the foundation of international rule of law and must be firmly rejected. People cannot help but ask, where is the authority of the Security Council? As the primary body responsible for maintaining international peace and security, the Council has been striving to achieve a ceasefire in Gaza and has long reached overwhelming consensus on ceasefire and humanitarian issues. Today's vote result once again exposes that the root cause of the Council's inability to quell the conflict in Gaza is the repeated obstruction by the U.S., who has vetoed the Council's request for ceasefire multiple times. And because of its shielding of Israel, several resolutions adopted by the Council have not been effectively implemented. Claims that Security Council action would interfere with diplomatic efforts are completely untenable. As long as diplomatic efforts are genuinely aimed at peace, the actions of the Council will only provide strong support. Madam President, the international community will never cease its efforts to pursue fairness and justice, uphold the international rule of law, and safeguard the authority of the Council. A veto by a single permanent member cannot stop the march toward peace. We urge the U.S. to face up to its responsibilities as a permanent Council member, abandon political calculations, and adopt a just and responsible attitude in supporting the Council to take all necessary actions. China stands ready to work with the international community to help end the conflict in Gaza, alleviate the humanitarian disaster, implement the two-state solution, and ultimately achieve a comprehensive, just, and lasting solution of the Palestinian question. Thank you, Madam President.